Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about My Singing Monsters Fandemonium and all of my thoughts about the new live cartoon series that is being broadcasted on the My Singing Monsters YouTube channel and Facebook accounts. First of all, let's address the big elephant in the room then. What happened to those singing monsters? And where is it now? Now, according to the facts section of the Fandemonium website, it states that My Singing Monsters Fandemonium is not those singing monsters, and it doesn't give us any more information other than that. For those of you who don't know, Those Singing Monsters was originally what was being developed out of this cartoon series project with Winsun Sky Entertainment, the animation studio behind the My Singing Monsters Fandemonium. My Singing Monsters Fandemonium appears to be the byproduct of Those Singing Monsters, and it doesn't appear as though we are getting Those Singing Monsters at all now, which is very unfortunate, as it's exciting to think about what could have been out of this project. Imagining this whole other take on the monster world and getting to explore characters outside of the monster world as we know it, and different plot-based episodes as you go through, and potentially a long story coinciding throughout these episodes would have been so entertaining, and it would have set the My Singing Monsters franchise off in a completely different direction and would have resonated with a completely different audience, would have got more fans there, would have got a whole different demographic to come along and explore the game, and unfortunately that isn't the case. However, My Singing Monsters Fandemonium has its own unique good attributes, and I think it's important with this, as lots of things can come from animation development, is not to think of My Singing Monsters Fandemonium as a negative out of this, as obviously Those Singing Monsters would have been so cool. If you have a look at the animation and things which they were able to do in that image, that was so cool, and if we would have been able to see that come forward, I would have loved that. However, it's important not to think of My Singing Monsters Fandemonium as a negative as a result of that, as there's just so many factors that go into development and things, and all in all, developing an animation project, any kind of animation project, is a huge undertaking, and I'm sure this was a choice on their part that was the correct decision to be made. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's coming, but anyway, we have My Singing Monsters Fandemonium now, at least. It's hard to imagine that it was announced in 2016, 4.5 years ago now. Absolutely insane. Anyway, we're here in the present day now with My Singing Monsters Fandemonium, so let's go over the show then. First of all, in the show, they have Furcorn behind a podium and Mammoth and Pom Pom standing up, and they introduce each other. I love Furcorn's podium and the fact that they're more of a broadcaster in this cartoon series. It fits their more musical personality. I would say that they are more suited to the role based on their design and their overall animations in the game, so it makes sense why they would take on this role. It's important to know as well, this is not canon by any means inside of the My Singing Monsters multiverse. This show, even though it's set in the monster world, it's not a part of the lore in-game and stuff. We know that Furcorn, Pom Pom and Mammoth don't actually talk in the game, so it's important to recognise that, I do think, with the kinds of things that they're saying. Obviously, for example, when we got Prismatic Shell Beats revealed, for example, yesterday, they literally were like, oh, it's in the prequel game My Singing Monsters Dawn of Fire, and they wouldn't know that, would they, obviously, if it was a part of the canon, and yeah. So it's important to just bear that in mind. Then in each episode, they shout out some fans and some comments. That was cool to see that audience interaction there. Unfortunately, I'll never be a part of that experience, as it airs really late where I live, but getting to see that audience interaction when I was watching it on Facebook seemed really cool, and I just wonder how much work goes into that. It appears they have to do quite a bit of work to get that up and running, and it's really cool that they've gone ahead and done all that to get that moving forward. Then we get the randomness challenge, which is more movement involved out of the monsters. The monstrosity of the week, which is a challenge for the monsters for the rest of the episode for them to do on top of that as well. Now, these kinds of sections don't resonate with me personally. It's aimed at a much more younger demographic. It's not my cup of tea, but I do understand that My Singing Monsters does have a lot of younger players, so I'm sure lots of people do enjoy those challenges that the monsters do undertake and participate in throughout the episodes. We also get them answering questions inside of the episodes, and it's cool to see their takes on the questions that are being broadcast by the community towards them, and to see the monsters' interactions themselves happen live. I imagine that's that's quite the experience. The voice acting inside of it is a really good adaptation from the game. If you just take the regular voices of Furcorn, Mammoth, and Pom-Pom from the main game, it just wouldn't suit this kind of medium that they're going into now. When you move from one kind of a medium to another, you have to change things up usually, and this is just another product of that transition again, and I'm happy that they've made that transition in a really good manner. We have more American voices for these monsters now, and it's cool to see that happening. It just fits the more so American and Canadian audience that My Singing Monsters has. It was carried out in a way that was much better than what I expected originally. I was expecting them to have potentially trouble finding that transition there and making that transition into the medium itself, and I'm happy that they've just took it in their stride and found a way to make it work, and they've not used the old voice actors, and the voice actors that voice the games, I must say, are absolutely amazing. We all know it, but now that they're going into another kind of medium, this is like a completely different thing to the games, so it's nice to see them making that change to suit that demographic a lot more. The voice did lag behind in episode 2, I did notice. I found that as I was watching, it was very noticeable that the mouths were moving out of sync with the audio, so hopefully that's fixed in future episodes. I really like the comments that they made about Facebook and YouTube. They comment about who's a tube and the faces of Buck, and it is just hilarious when they do that. It's fabulous world immersion and getting into the world of My Singing Monsters itself. It fits the multiverse just really well, them doing that. So I'm happy that they're doing that to isolate themselves away from the human world, as obviously the monster world is vastly different to the human world. The nicknames too are so cute. Pom-Pom calls Mammoth Mam, and we have Corny and Human for human. It's so cute because obviously they're isolated once again, so getting that inclusion in there is really great, and it feels like the friends from it too. You can really see the relationship that they have between one another, which is just another plus. With Mammoth being the more dopey of the characters, and Furcorn being just a sarcastic little monster in their own way, which is wonderful to witness. The way they handled as well technical difficulties as the monsters was glorious too, and acting as though they'd just had a monster gobstopper in the mouth, which is why they couldn't move the mouth at a couple of points in the first episode, was quite funny. In the middle of each episode, well, around about the middle, they go over news. I have broadcast my opinions regarding this section in my previous video regarding Res and Epics coming to the game. I went over it quite a bit over there if you want to watch that. I went over how I do prefer my teasers that we originally received the day before a release, as this is a full blown out preview that we're getting of monsters right here, and there's no hype going into it. There's no time really to think about what it's going to look like and what we can expect the day following. There's no build up to it. There's not much substance there for us to get hyped about. It literally just comes on screen, shows you what it is, and that's it, and then it's coming next week. That's a long time to wait as well. It's 5 days in between from the release, which is a rather long amount of time to wait. I mean, I'm glad for my prismatics so I can get them over in time if I haven't got them in time over there already. I would love if they commented about news that just went on throughout the week rather, as teasers work a lot better in my opinion. Obviously though, I must say, please don't take this the wrong way, because I think that this works very well for the show, as obviously this is going to drive the popularity behind it, as people are going to want to know what's coming next for the game, and it's going to get them to watch it. So obviously, yeah, people are going to like it for that fact. However, I do prefer, just from a game standpoint, seeing teasers release and things. But then again, this is the main thing. It's a limited release show, and changing things up is amazing. And the fact that they are changing things up just means that things are going to be more unique, and we need more diversity in terms of the schedule. So I think it's a huge plus regardless of me liking teasers more, and it's not going to be like this forever as it's a limited series. In the first episode, we had Pom-Pom comment about a little Tweedle going on about Epic Kana and telling them about it. It was wonderful, that comment. It fits into the lore so well, and I love the writing in these episodes. The fact that she said that Kana's a bestie as well, that relationship, and going into the depth of this canon, if you will, of Fandemonium is nice. And it was surprising to me too that they called out in the first episode that extravaganza is going to happen too. It was an absolute bombshell that they were dropping on us in that first episode out of the news that we got in that. So that was really exciting. In the second episode, we had Prismatic Shelby revealed too. Now here is my little issue with the writing though. I think the writing is really strong. I think it's really well written. It's definitely the biggest strength for me that I found with this show overall. However, I found that in the second episode, it wasn't quite as well written as the first one. If we go to the second one, you had Furcorn bringing up the extravaganza event, and they were making a joke out of that name as though they weren't really aware of it, when in fact the extravaganza event is something that's happened for years in the monster world and they should be aware of it. So it was weird that they were making fun of it and acting like it was a new kind of joke when the event has been around for years. The writing could be better on that point, and also when Pom Pom was revealing Prismatic Shelby, they were on about them having a dream about Shelbeat going into the Prism Gate and getting changed on a biomolecular level. Now, I don't think Pom Pom, as much as I love her, is gonna know what a Prism Gate is in a current situation in the monster world. That's from Dawn of Fire, and I don't think you'd understand what was going on there quite as well as what you literally pointed out in that episode. Now, I know it's not canon, guys. I know. But I just must say, it was so out of the law. I just have to bring it up because, like, I'd understand if they were saying it, oh, Pom Pom's had a dream, they saw Shelby get sucked into this weird vortex, but no, Pom Pom literally specified what this structure is called and called out Shelby getting changed on a biomolecular level and coming out of this Prism Gate.
Prism Gate opened and swallowed Shelby. Shelby was different. They had been altered in the molecular level.
I understand that's what happens with the Prism Gate, but she's not going to know that. That's from Dawn of Fire eons ago. Hundreds, thousands, millions of years ago. It's definitely a long enough time away for them to not have any recollection about it. I mean, Pom Pom Sweetie, if you were having dreams about Prismatic Shelby, I just question why you weren't having dreams about the fire elementals. That's all I gotta say, because we're in that volcano, sweetie, for literally 6-7 years of the game, so that is a bit worrying, love, if that's what's on your mind. But anyway, moving on, it was nice to see world immersion. I'll point out a good point. When Mammoth was on about Water Island on the first episode, now Water Island has been a common theme in these two episodes, because obviously we have the extravaganza event going on right now. But when Mammoth was on about Water Island and the monsters on Water Island and them being underwater and them questioning how they breathe and stuff, I found that quite funny because all the monsters don't happen to be on Water Island, so them pointing that joke there was quite funny, and I give props to the writers for that one. Towards the end of each episode, we get a dance break, once again aimed at a younger demographic, and then we have the monstrosity of the week, which involves a fun challenge, once again, not really aimed towards me necessarily. It's definitely aimed towards the younger kind of demographic. Specifically, I'm going to point out an example from the first episode where Pom Pom was going down to Mammoth's toenails and they were holding the breath. The writing was so on point. Once again, we then follow up with questions that are asked by the community to the monsters. The questions that have been asked so far aren't necessarily lore related. They all seem to be just general questions targeted towards Pom Pom, like what's your favourite colour, and the other cast members, which is a bit unfortunate. I would love to see more lore integration into the show, perhaps like what we would have seen with those singing monsters, and just seeing what might happen inside this kind of sub-dimension of the monster world, this different take on it. I had quite a few laughs throughout the episodes. I thought the humour was handled quite well. Obviously, like I've mentioned, some sections just didn't call out to me. I imagine lots of you watching though, you'll love it, so props to you. It's very well written, all the jokes and things. We have, for example, Pom Pom holding the breath, like I've just mentioned in episode 1.
I cleaned them like a month ago.
Whereas in episode 2, we have Furcorn about the stock market and their portfolio, which was quite funny. me.
It's a moving target, just like my investment portfolio.
So we have that demographic difference there in terms of the humor, which is really nice. I like that. And with the 3D background too, looks okay. The waterfall in the background is nice to look at as the episode is going on, but I do think it could have been a lot better. The models in the background, particularly the background, like that's the backdrop, so I imagine that that wouldn't be as hard to implement into this. But the live stream nature of it has had compensations made around it. You can't expect big budgets, 3D animation pizzazz to go on inside of this because this is happening live. I still think that it could have been better than what it turned out to be. The models aren't thrilling, and the fact that promotional material uses different models than the actual models in the show itself speaks for itself, really. In terms of what the show could have been then, I think more lore-based questions would have been interesting. We know it's not canon, but getting more lore in terms of their take on the monster world that Fandemonium has, and seeing how the monsters as lore in that different take on the monster world is different to the monster world itself, and just exploring the lore a lot more would have been really cool. I feel like that is a section that would speak to long-time players of an older age a lot more than other sections, as they are definitely aimed at a much more younger demographic. It would have been nice for the show to be canon too. If we were talking about it being canon, obviously I think it would have been the case for the Wordos to come on and do this. The concept behind it being canon in the game lore itself would have been exciting to me. It would have been nice to get humor for everyone too. I think the writing, though, again, is really strong. Again, my favorite point behind the show, but if I was to point out something that they could improve from it, I would say for the writers, just finding humor that sticks out for everyone rather than a specific demographic all the way through each episode. Maybe something that they want to look into. And it would have been nice, obviously, too, to just have those singing monsters. I can't express enough how exciting it would have been to have a plot-heavy related My Singing Monsters show. Unfortunately, it's not going to be the case, it looks like, but you can dream, and you know what, it would have been so cool. If you haven't watched my video about what could have been with those singing monsters, please go and do yourself a favour and go and watch it, as I think it just identifies what could have been with those singing monsters just so well. We know that My Singing Monsters Fandemonium is a replacement for My Singing Monsters Live. It's a nice change away from My Singing Monsters Live to change things up. I think it works quite well. It was nice to stray away from the formula that they had going for a long time, for a year or so. However, I must say I do prefer My Singing Monsters Live over Fandemonium. It was nice to have a chance to talk to the developers themselves. They were more to the point. It was related to the canon behind the My Singing Monsters game itself, and I loved the format of it. I really hope that it does make a comeback one day, because it was the best way to go about this kind of thing, I do think personally. Again, changing up the formula is great, but I just hope that My Singing Monsters Live does come back one day, as that developer interaction in My Singing Monsters Live was just so good. Overall then, I don't think that they could have done much better with the live stream setup. I think they've done quite well with this. Again, writing is just the strength of everything. It's the pizzazz of this show. It's what makes it work. It's what the show essentially relies on, and that isn't a bad fact. And I wonder what the future of this show is going to be. Will season 2 be announced? That's yet to be revealed. I hope we go back to My Singing Monsters Live. No, I'm not gonna lie. It's cool for what it is though, guys. Let me know what you think about Fandemonium down below. Obviously, everything stated in this video was my opinion, and I would love to hear yours. So tell me down below what you think about the show. For now though, guys, bye!